Whisper in the hall. The palace was huge, filled with shining glass walls and tall alien guards standing like statues. The human Daniel walked slowly across the marble floor. He was only a worker, a servant hired to carry documents and clean the lower halls. His job was simple, but today he felt something different in the air. The alien court was buzzing with whispers. Daniel kept his eyes down, avoiding trouble. The alien nobles often laughed at him, calling him the fragile one. Humans were rare here, mostly used for small tasks. But Daniel did not complain. He just wanted peace, a simple life far from Earth. Yet peace was not waiting for him today. At the end of the golden hallway, he saw her, the alien princess. She was taller than him, her skin glowing faint silver under the palace lights. Her eyes were large, bright like twin moons. She moved with grace, but Daniel noticed something else. She was looking straight at him. Daniel froze. His heart started to beat faster. He quickly looked away, hoping she would pass without notice. The princess never spoke to workers, never lowered herself to humans, but her steps slowed. Then she stopped right in front of him. The guards turned their heads, watching closely. Daniel felt sweat on his forehead. His hands trembled slightly as he bowed. "Your Highness," he whispered, afraid to anger her. For a moment, she said nothing. Her eyes studied him as if she was searching for something hidden inside. Then, without warning, she leaned closer. Her lips almost touched his ear. Her voice was soft, gentle, and dangerous all at once. "Why don't you date me, human?" Daniel's heart nearly stopped. His breath caught in his chest. The words rang in his head like thunder. He thought he had heard wrong, but no, the princess's voice was clear. She had whispered those exact words. He pulled back slightly, his eyes wide with show. If the guards had heard, he would be dead by now. Dating the princess? It was impossible, forbidden. The law was strict. No human could ever touch royalty, let alone love them. "Your Highness," Daniel stammered, trying to find words. I don't understand." The princess smiled faintly, but her eyes glowed with a secret fire. She tilted her head as if daring him to deny her. Then, as quickly as she came, she straightened her posture. Her face became calm and royal again. She turned away, walking down the hall as though nothing had happened. Daniel stood frozen, his mind spinning. What had just happened? Did she truly mean it? Or was it some cruel game? His chest burned with fear, yet his heart danced in a strange rhythm he had never felt before. The guards stared at him for a long second, but said nothing. Then they followed the princess, their armor clanging against the marble floor. Daniel was left alone, his hands still shaking. As he picked up the documents he had dropped, his thoughts raced. Why him? Why now? He was nobody, just a human servant in a world that barely accepted him. Yet the princess's words were real, and they echoed inside him with dangerous sweetness. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay on his small bed in the servants' quarters, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. Her soft whisper felt like a secret spell. He tried to convince himself to forget it, to throw the memory away. But his heart refused. It kept repeating the same question. "Why don't you date me, human?" The next morning, Daniel walked into the palace again, hoping everything would be normal. He told himself she would ignore him, pretend it never happened. But deep inside, fear mixed with excitement. And then, across the grand hall, he saw her once more. Her eyes caught his in the crowd. This time, her lips curved into the smallest smile, a smile. Lonely, he noticed, Daniel's blood ran cold. He knew then, it had not been a mistake, it had not been an accident. The alien princess had chosen him for something far greater. The dangerous secret. Daniel tried to keep his head down as he worked, but the princess's whisper followed him everywhere. It was like a shadow in his mind, soft but impossible to forget. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard it again. "Why don't you date me, human?" He wanted to believe it was nothing. Maybe she had been testing him, or mocking him. But deep inside, he knew she was serious. And that truth made his chest heavy with fear. Days passed, and Daniel avoided her eyes whenever she entered the hall. He bowed lower than before, spoke less, and walked faster. Yet no matter how much he tried to escape her attention, she found him. One evening, Daniel was carrying scrolls through the royal garden. The air was warm, filled with glowing flowers that opened only at night. The path was quiet, too quiet. His footsteps echoed softly on the stone tiles, and then he heard her voice again. "Human." He froze. The scrolls nearly slipped from his hands. Slowly he turned, and there she was, standing under the silver light of the moon trees. Her silver hair shimmered like falling water. Her eyes glowed brighter than the garden lamps. "Your Highness," Daniel whispered, bowing quickly. He glanced around. The guards were not near. Only the two of them stood in the hidden corner of the garden. "Do not fear," she said, her voice calm. "I asked you something, and I want your answer." Daniel's throat felt dry. His heart pounded against his ribs. "Princess, you cannot mean it. Humans are not allowed." She stepped closer, her face inches from his. Her gaze burned into him. "Do not tell me what is allowed. Tell me what you feel." Daniel's lips trembled. He wanted to step back, but his body refused. He wanted to deny her, but his chest betrayed him, beating harder with every breath. I don't understand why me," he said softly. "I am nobody." For the first time, her strong Yao mask cracked, her voice lowered, almost fragile. "That is why I choose you," she whispered. "You are not like them. You do not want the throne. You do not lie to please me. When I see you, I see truth." Daniel blinked, stunned. No one in the palace dared to speak so honestly, yet here she was, opening her heart to him, a princess of the empire, risking everything. Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed. The princess quickly straightened, her face returning to calm control. Two alien guards turned the corner, their glowing eyes scanned the path. Daniel lowered his head, pretending to be busy with the scrolls. His hands shook as he gripped them tight. The guards bowed to the princess and passed, but not before one of them gave Daniel a long, suspicious stare. When they were gone, the princess whispered sharply, "Do not tell anyone, human. Not a single word." Daniel nodded quickly. "Of course, I swear it." She looked at him one last time, her eyes softer now. "Then keep my secret, and keep your heart ready." Before Daniel could reply, she was gone, slipping into the shadows of the palace, her silver light fading among the trees. Daniel sank onto a stone bench, his chest heaving. He pressed a hand over his heart, trying to steady it. What was happening to him? He had promised himself never to get involved in alien politics, never to risk his life for anything. Yet the princess's words pulled him deeper with every breath. That night, sleep refused to come. In his mind, he saw her eyes again and again. He remembered the trembling softness in her voice, the way she had said, "That is why I choose you." He turned on his bed, gripping the blanket tightly. His fear battled with something far more dangerous. Hope. A hope he had no right to feel. A hope that could destroy him. The next morning, Daniel returned to the palace with heavy steps. He wanted to forget. But when he entered the hall, he felt it again. Her eyes on him, watching, waiting. And in that moment, Daniel understood the truth. The princess's secret was not just dangerous, it was deadly. If anyone discovered it, both of them would pay with their lives. Yet even as fear filled his chest, his heart whispered back to him, "She chose me, and once chosen by her, there was no turning back." Eyes of the court. The palace court was alive with noise. Golden banners hung from the ceiling. Nobles in shining robes whispered to one another. Guards stood tall with their weapons, their glowing eyes scanning every corner. To Daniel, it always felt like stepping into the mouth of a beast. He carried a tray of sealed scrolls across the chamber, trying to look invisible. Humans were often ignored here, but now, after the princess's words in the garden, Daniel felt every glance sharper than a blade. His heart beat faster as he moved, afraid someone could see the truth hidden in his chest. The alien princess entered, tall and radiant, all voices lowered when she walked. Her silver hair glimmered like flowing light. Her gown shimmered with jewels from distant stars. She looked powerful, untouchable, yet her eyes betrayed a secret spark. For the briefest moment, her gaze found Daniel in the crowd, and her lips curved into the smallest smile. Daniel's stomach twisted. He quickly looked down, but it was too late. Some of the nobles had noticed. Their alien eyes narrowed. Whispers spread across the chamber like smoke. "Why does she look at the human?" one voice muttered. "Perhaps she pities him," another sneered. "No, it is something else," came a darker reply. Daniel clenched his fists, pretending not to hear. His only hope was silence, blending into the shadows like he always had. But whispers had sharp teeth, and soon they reached ears that wanted trouble. After the court session, when the nobles left the hall, one alien lord called for Daniel. His name was Lord Karen, tall and cruel, with scales of black and gold. His smile was thin as a blade. "You, human," Karen said, his voice echoing against the walls. "Come closer." Daniel obeyed, bowing low. His hands trembled as he clutched the tray. "You serve in this palace every day," Karen said slowly, his yellow eyes narrowing. "You see the princess often, do you not?" Daniel's throat tightened. He forced his voice steady. "Yes, my lord. I serve as instructed." Karen leaned forward, studying him like prey. Then tell me, why does her gaze linger on you? What tricks have you played to earn her notice? Daniel's heart raced. He felt the eyes of guards and servants upon him. If he answered wrong, he was finished. He bowed lower. I do not know, my lord. I am nothing. I am just a servant. Karen's lips curled, as if unsatisfied. You had better remember your place, human, he said coldly. For if I find you reaching above it, you will not live to regret it. Daniel bowed again. Yes, my lord. Karen walked away, his robe dragging like a shadow across the floor. But Daniel knew the danger was growing. Suspicion was now alive, and once alive, it could never be killed. That night, while Daniel carried water through the halls, a soft voice called from the shadows. He turned, and there she was, the princess, hidden behind a golden pillar. Her eyes glowed with mischief and worry both. You must be careful, she whispered. They are watching. Daniel shook his head quickly. Princess, this is dangerous. You should stay away from me. But she only stepped closer, her silver gown brushing against the stone floor. And leave you to their suspicion alone? No, human. You carry this burden because of me, and I will not abandon you. Her words struck his chest like arrows. For a moment, Daniel forgot the fear. He saw only her eyes, soft yet strong. Then he looked away, whispering, If they discover the truth, it will destroy us. Both. The princess leaned in, her voice low. Then we must guard our secret carefully. Do not fear, Daniel. I have walked game. Among liars and schemers my whole life, I know how to play this game. Daniel met her gaze again. His chest was heavy, torn between dread and longing. He wanted to beg her to stop, to let him go free, but deep inside he knew it was too late. Her fire had already touched his heart. Suddenly the sound of footsteps echoed through the hall. The princess pulled back instantly, her face returning to calm nobility. A group of nobles passed by, their eyes sharp. Daniel bowed low, pretending to be only a servant with water. But one of the nobles glanced between him and the princess, his expression unreadable. Suspicion grew like a shadow, wrapping tighter around them. When the hall was quiet again, Daniel exhaled shakily. The princess whispered softly, almost with a smile, Do not let them break you, human. They do not know your strength. Daniel wanted to answer, but words failed. He only bowed, hiding the storm inside him. That night, as he lay on his bed, Daniel knew one thing with certainty. The court's eyes were on him now, and every step, every glance, could be his last mistake. Yet even as danger grew, his heart whispered back the forbidden truth. He did not want to escape her, not anymore, the forbidden bond. The night was quiet, but Daniel could not rest. The whispers in the court haunted him. Lord Karen's sharp eyes, the noble's suspicious glances, the heavy silence of the guards. It all pressed on his chest like iron chains. He knew danger was closing in, but when he heard the soft sound of footsteps outside his small chamber, his heart jumped. He rose quickly, opening the door, and there she was, the alien princess, standing in the dim glow of the palace lamps. Her silver hair shimmered in the shadows. Princess, Daniel whispered, his voice breaking with fear. You cannot be here. Her lips curved into a faint smile. And yet I am. Will you turn me away? Human? Daniel's throat tightened. He stepped aside, letting her in. She walked gracefully, though her eyes held the same tension as his. When the door closed behind them, silence filled the room. For the first time, they were alone with no eyes watching. You risk everything, Daniel said, his voice low. If anyone finds you here, it will be the end of us both. She looked at him with calm fire. Then let it be the end. But I will not pretend before them, not when my heart is already decided. Daniel's breath caught. He wanted to argue, to tell her this was madness, but her gaze held him prisoner. He had seen her command armies with a single word, and yet here she stood, whispering to him as if he were the only soul that mattered. Why me? Daniel finally asked. You are royalty. You could choose anyone, and yet... His words faded. The princess stepped closer. Her fingers brushed his arm, light, gentle, like a spark. Because you are not like them. They see power, crowns, and thrones. You see only me. That is why. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to pull away, but instead he froze, his chest burning with emotions he could not name. For a while they spoke in hushed voices. He told her of Earth, of the oceans and forests she had never seen. She laughed softly when he described the taste of chocolate. She told him of her childhood, of the loneliness hidden behind the golden walls of the palace. As the night deepened, Daniel felt the distance between them fade. What began as fear turned into something warmer, something dangerous. His soul whispered that this bond was no longer avoidable, but then, shadows moved outside. A faint scrape against the stone. Daniel stiffened. His hand flew to the door. He opened it just slightly, and his blood ran cold. A cloaked figure darted into the hallway, eyes glowing in the dark. The spy glanced back once before disappearing. Into the palace, Daniel's stomach dropped. Someone had seen them. He turned back to the princess, panic flashing in his eyes. "We are discovered. Someone knows." The princess did not flinch. Her chin lifted proudly. "Let them whisper. Let them plot. I am not afraid." Daniel grabbed her hand, trembling. "You should be afraid. They will not forgive this. They will destroy me. And you with me." For a heartbeat, she looked down at their joined hands. Her expression softened. "Then we will stand together, human," she whispered. "I would rather fall beside you than sit forever on a throne made of lies." Her words struck deeper than any blade. Daniel could not answer. His chest was too full. Fear, love, and a strange pride he had never known. The palace bells rang suddenly, sharp and loud. The alarm spread through the halls. Guards shouted in the distance. Their heavy boots shook the floor. Daniel's blood turned to ice. He knew what it meant. Someone had spoken. Their secret was no longer safe. The princess looked at him one last time before the door burst open. "Do not break, Daniel," she whispered, "no matter what comes." And then the guards stormed in, their armor shining, weapons raised. Their eyes flickered between Daniel and the princess, suspicion turning into certainty. Daniel's hands curled into fists. His heart screamed inside him. The forbidden bond had been formed, and now the world would punish them for it. The trial of love. The throne room was colder than ice. Tall pillars stretched to the ceiling, covered in golden carvings of old kings. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the soft hiss of the guards' armor as they stood like statues. Daniel knelt on the hard floor, chains biting into his wrists. He kept his head bowed, heart racing like thunder. The whispers of nobles filled the vast chamber, their eyes burned with hatred and curiosity. On the high throne sat the alien king, a towering figure with a crown of metal and fire. His gaze was sharp, heavy, a weight that crushed Daniel's soul. Beside him saw the princess, her head held high, though her hands trembled at her sides. "Bring forth the charges," the king commanded. His voice echoed like a storm. A noble stepped forward, his voice venomous. "This human has broken sacred law. He has dared to touch the royal bloodline. He has dared to win the princess's attention. For this crime, there is only one punishment: death." Gasps spread through the court. Some aliens smirked with satisfaction. Others leaned forward hungrily, waiting to see a human fall. Daniel lifted his head slowly. His eyes met the king's. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but his throat felt locked. What words could save him here? Before he could try, the princess stepped forward. Her silver gown swirled like a flame. Her voice rang clear, shaking the hall. "No, this is not his crime. It is my choice." The court erupted. Nobles shouted, some in disbelief, others in anger. The king raised his hand, and silence returned like a blade. His eyes narrowed on his daughter. "Explain yourself." The princess lifted her chin, her voice strong, though her eyes glistened with fire. "Yes, I chose him. I whispered to him. I sought his company. If there is blame, place it on me, not him." Daniel's breath caught. His heart ached at her courage, but the noble's fury only grew. "Unthinkable," one shouted. "Disgraceful," another hissed. "Her blood is tainted by the touch of a human." The king's voice thundered. "Enough!" His glare turned back to Daniel. "What say you, human? Did you seek her? Did you lure her with false charm? Or do you admit this weakness is yours?" Daniel's chest heaved. He wanted to stay silent, but then he looked at her, her eyes unafraid, burning with truth. She had risked everything to defend him. Could he do less? He rose to his knees, voice trembling but clear. "I never sought power. I never dreamed of this. I am only a servant. But if you ask what I feel, I will not lie. I would give my life for her. Not for her crown, not for her throne, but for her." The court roared again, voices clashing. Some shouted for his head, others demanded exile. The king's expression remained carved from stone. Finally, the king raised his hand once more. "Silence!" he boomed. His eyes burned into Daniel's soul. "If you speak of love, then prove it. Words are wind, easily broken. But action cannot be denied." He stood, his presence towering over the hall. "You will face a trial, human, a trial of love and courage. If you pass, perhaps the court will see truth in your words. If you fail..." His hand fell like a hammer. "You will die, and your ashes will be scattered into the void." Daniel's blood ran cold. The nobles whispered eagerly. The thought of watching him break entertained them. The princess's face went pale. She stepped forward quickly. "Father, no, this is cruel. He has done nothing wrong." The king's gaze hardened. "Then let him prove it," he said. His voice carried the final weight of judgment. Guards dragged Daniel to his feet. His chains clattered as they pulled him from the hall. The princess reached out, her voice breaking through the silence. "Daniel!" He turned his head. Their eyes met for one fleeting heartbeat. She whispered with her lips, unheard by the crowd but clear to him, "Do not give up." That whisper filled his chest with fire as he was taken away. The nobles cheered, hungry for blood. The trial would be announced at dawn. The fate of the human and the princess's honor would be decided. As Daniel was locked in a dark cell, he sat against the cold wall. His body ached, but his heart refused to fall. He replayed her words, her defiance, her courage, and he whispered to himself, "I will not break. Not for them, not while she believes in me." The moonlight fell through the cracks of the cell, shining faintly across his face. It was the beginning of the trial, the beginning of the fight for love. And Daniel knew, win or lose, nothing would ever be the same again. The human stand. The trial ground was carved from black stone, an ancient circle where blood and honor were tested. Torches burned on tall pillars, their flames dancing against the night sky. Hundreds of nobles gathered around, their whispers rising like waves. Hungry eyes watched, waiting to see the human fall. Daniel stood in the center, his wrists unchained now but his heart heavy. The cold wind cut through his thin clothes, yet inside his chest burned like fire. He could still see her face, the princess, standing high among the nobles, her silver hair catching the torchlight. Her hands clenched at her sides, her lips pressed tight with fear. The king rose from his throne at the edge of the circle, his voice echoed through the night. "The human claims love for my daughter. He speaks of sacrifice and truth. Tonight, he will prove it. If his courage is false, he will die." The crowd roared, some cheering, some laughing cruelly. Daniel kept his eyes on the ground. His hands trembled, but he whispered to himself, "Do not break, not now." The trial began. From the shadows, a warrior stepped forward, an alien champion, taller than Daniel, armored in silver and bone. His eyes glowed with rage. His weapon was a blade made of burning light. Daniel's chest tightened. He had no sword, no armor, only his bare hands. The crowd laughed at the sight. A human against a warrior? It was hopeless. The princess's voice rang out suddenly, trembling but loud. "Father, this is not a trial, it is execution." The king's gaze stayed cold. Love is not proved by words or comfort. It is proved by standing when death calls. The champion lunged forward, his blade cutting through the air. Daniel jumped aside, the heat of the strike grazing his arm. Pain seared his skin, but he forced his legs to move. His heart hammered. He knew one blow would end him. The crowd laughed again, mocking his weak movements. But Daniel did not fight like a warrior. He fought like a survivor, dodging, rolling, forcing the champion to waste his strength. Minutes passed, sweat pouring down his face. His breath came ragged, but he saw something. The champion's strikes were slowing. His pride blinded him. He thought this fight was too easy, and that arrogance gave Daniel hope. The champion raised his blade high, roaring. Daniel ducked low, grabbing a handful of dust from the black stone floor. With all his strength, he threw it into the warrior's glowing eyes. The crowd gasped as the champion stumbled, blinded. His blade slashed wildly, missing its mark. Daniel's chest surged with fire. He leapt forward, grabbing a fallen spear from the ground. For the first time, he stood tall. His voice cut across the circle. "I did not come here to win glory. I did not come here to claim a throne. I came here because my heart chose her. And if I must fall tonight, I will fall standing." The crowd went silent. Their laughter died. His words struck something deeper than they expected. The blinded champion charged again, but Daniel braced himself. He sidestepped, driving the spear into the ground at an angle. The warrior tripped over it, crashing hard into the stone floor. His blade flew from his hand, sparking against the ground. The arena exploded with gasps. No one had believed a human could stand against a champion. Daniel stood over the fallen warrior, chest heaving, spear trembling in his grip. He could finish him, strike him down, but instead, he let the weapon fall. "I am not here to kill," Daniel said loudly, his voice raw but steady. "I am here to love. That is my strength." Silence held the air like a heavy chain. The nobles shifted uncomfortably. Their whispers were no longer mocking. They were uncertain, shaken. The princess's eyes filled with tears, her lips parted in awe. For the first time, Daniel saw not fear in her face, but pride. The king rose slowly, his eyes fixed on Daniel, unreadable. "You refuse the kill," he said, his voice low, "yet you win the trial." Daniel's knees nearly gave way, but he forced himself to stand tall. His chest burned, his arms shook, but his spirit did not bow. The king's voice thundered. "This human has stood when death came. He has proved his courage. His love may be foolish, but it is not false." The crowd erupted, some in outrage, some in awe. The court was divided, but the truth was undeniable. The human had survived. The princess broke through the guards, running into the circle. Her hands grabbed his, trembling. "Daniel," she whispered, tears in her voice. "You stood for me." Daniel's voice was weak, but his smile was strong. "I told you, I would not break." And in that moment, as the torches burned bright, Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The true battle was not survival, but love against a world that would never accept it, the dance of hearts. The torches burned low, their flames bending in the night wind. The crowd had fallen silent, watching with uneasy hearts. Daniel stood in the center of the trial ground, weak, bruised, his chest rising and falling like a storm-tossed sea. Yet his spirit was unbroken. The king's heavy voice still echoed in the circle. "This human has proved his courage." His words carried across the nobles, striking them with weight. Some bowed their heads in reluctant respect, while others glared with rage, unable to accept the truth. The princess was by Daniel's side, her silver gown flowing as she knelt. Her hands touched his arms, steadying him. Her eyes glistened like stars as she whispered, "You are more than they will ever understand, Daniel." Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. His body ached, but his heart felt light. For the first time, he was not afraid of the eyes upon him. He had faced death and chosen love. That truth was his shield now. But the nobles were not ready to surrender. A dark voice rose among them. Lord Karen, his eyes burning with fury. Lord Karen, his eyes burning with fury. "This cannot stand," he thundered. "If you allow this human to touch royal blood, you dishonor our empire. You weaken us before our enemies." The nobles roared in agreement, their voices rising like thunder. The crowd demanded the old laws be kept. They wanted Daniel cast out, broken, erased. The king lifted his hand, silence falling once more. His gaze burned into Daniel's soul. "Human, you have survived the trial, but surviving is not enough. A kingdom is built on more than courage. Tell me now, before all who stand here, what makes you worthy of my daughter's hand?" The weight of the question crushed the air. Daniel's knees trembled, his mind raced. But when he looked at her, the princess, her eyes full of trust, her hands clutching his answer rose from the deepest part of him. He stood tall, his voice raw but clear. "I am not worthy of her crown. I am not worthy of her throne. I am only a man. But I love her not for her power, not for her bloodline, but for her heart. If she were no princess at all, if she were a simple soul wandering the stars, I would still choose her, again and again." His words struck the court like lightning. Silence spread across the nobles. Some sneered, but others faltered, their pride shaken. The princess's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. She turned to the king, her voice breaking but strong. "Father, is this not what you taught me? That true strength is found not in thrones or armies, but in those who will stand when all else falls?" The king's face remained stone. His silence stretched, heavy as mountains. Then slowly, he rose from his throne. His crown gleamed in the firelight. "You speak truth, daughter," he said, his voice deep. "And you, human, have shown a heart stronger than many warriors of my court." Gasps filled the chamber. Daniel's chest tightened. He could not believe the words, but before relief could settle, the king's eyes hardened again. "Know this," he declared. "If you take her hand, you will carry not only her heart, but the weight of the empire's scorn. The path will be filled with enemies. You will never know peace." Daniel's voice did not falter. "Then let them come," he said, his tone steady. "As long as she is with me, I will not fear." The princess gripped his hand tighter. Her smile trembled, but her eyes shone with fire. "And as long as he is with me, I will never bow to them." The court exploded with chaos, some shouting in anger, others stunned to silence. But the king lifted his hand once more, and all voices died. His face remained grim, but in his eyes, a spark of reluctant respect burned. "Then so it shall be," he declared. "Let the galaxy see what becomes of a princess who dares to love a human." The princess turned to Daniel, her lips curved into a smile that melted his fear. She leaned closer, her voice soft but carrying through the silence. "Why don't you date me, human?" she whispered again, the same words that had started everything. Daniel's heart surged, stronger than ever. He laughed softly, his voice breaking. "I think I already do." The crowd gasped. The nobles seethed. But none of it mattered. Not in that moment. The princess slipped her hand into his, and together they stepped forward into the fire of the future. The torches burned brighter, as if the night itself bowed to their bond. The forbidden had become truth, and the truth had become power, and though the world was against them, their hearts danced as one, ready to face whatever came next.